I'll call the meeting back to order. Please rise for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to welcome our guests here this evening and those watching on cable. First item on our agenda.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Yule.
I'd like to make a comment, if you don't mind, with regard to some events that have been occurring nationally with regard to the police. A few weeks ago, we had a moment of silence and we expressed our sincere concern about the events that have been happening in St. Louis and other parts of the country. But unfortunately, things have progressed to such an extent that police officers are being shot and killed at random. And I know of at least two, there may be a third for all I know. But it's a bad situation our country is in, and I wanted to express that and say that I'm very concerned for not only police officers nationwide, but even here in town. You never know when something like that is going to happen. It could happen here. And so I just want to express my concern for the police officers and their safety.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
Okay, next item on our agenda, or first item on our agenda, is the minutes of July 13, 2015 executive session.
Because we didn't have the meeting, we didn't discuss it in our executive session.
All right.
That wasn't discussed. You can do that.
We will discuss it after this
Right.
regular session.
What's it, this,
Uh,
what, the revised ones?
Yeah, the
Proposed
revised one,
Okay.
July 13.
Okay. There was, does anybody have?
Mr.
have an issue?
Prisco has an issue.
Yeah, it's not true.
Okay. We can wait on that.
Okay, we have the minutes of August 24, 2015, regular
let me
session.
just see.
Mr. O'Leary.
Let me get this over here. Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the August 24th, 2015 regular session minutes as written.
Second,
Do I hear a second from Mr. Yule?
yes.
Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Unanimous?
Right. Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the August 24th, 2015 executive session minutes as written.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Prisco.
We're gonna vote?
We are going to vote. On the motion, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous.
3-0.
Sign the October town meeting. Do we have our, yes, we do.
It's in the house.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
could I just have the floor for just a moment
Yes.
with regard to the warrant? So I know we're going to go through in some more detail when we take up warrant article recommendations. Again, I'm not expecting that the board will be in a position to make recommendations on every single article at this evening's meeting. But I would just note that the warrant as drafted reflects the draft that was reviewed at the August 24th meeting with the addition of articles, and I'll just note the articles that were added. Article 6, relative to special counsel legal expenses. I'll note Article 12, fund repairs to town buildings. We've not put a dollar amount in that because I'm still in the process of reviewing with the Public Works Director what the projects that we'll recommend will be. So we've left it without a dollar number in there. At this point in time, I don't anticipate asking for more than the tradition of $50,000, but I didn't put a number in there because I've not completed that review. Article 14, which is with regard to the sale of parkland at Magnolia Road, that article is on the warrant here, and the informal indication we get is that the town-owned parcel of land in question would be suitable for a septic system location, if that were determined to be the outcome. So this would give the board the authority to petition the general court for the authority to then convey the land.
Okay.
Article 15, which is the granting of an easement associated with Carpenter Drive. That article is also on here as drafted by town council per the board's discussion at the last meeting. There are general bylaw revisions on there relative to editorial revisions for the general bylaws themselves, relative to the admission of visual presentations at town meeting, and relative to bylaw relative to funerals and interment. As I mentioned, we were working with town council to make modifications to the town's existing bylaw relative to snow removal on streets and sidewalks, and you'll see that the first two sections of that bylaw are proposed to be revised in Article 19. This would give us a bit more teeth, if you will, in enforcing the existing bylaws to promote, encourage, and require snow removal. We can talk further about that.
Okay.
And then the final new article, Article 20, which is regarding the sex offender residency bylaw approved at the October 2014 town meeting. As the board is aware, and I think some in the community are aware, the Supreme Judicial Court struck down an ordinance in the city of Lynn, which has many similarities to our bylaw as approved last October. Council recommended that at this point it does not expect any further appeal, and that it would recommend that we repeal the bylaw. So an article to do such has been added. And I just note that for the board prior to actually signing the warrant.
So they've been renumbered based on
They've
what
been
we have
renumbered.
here?
There's been, I think we consolidated the 3 water articles to be in consecutive order. And we inserted the sex offender registry article as well.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Yule?
Yes. With regard to Article 19, when do you plan to have something before us with regarding the wording for that article?
I believe the article as drafted by council includes the wording that I would want to review with the board. What it does is give the town the authority. The town basically would be accepting the provisions of the relevant general law that would allow us to essentially assess the cost for cleaning a property that has not had snow removed from the sidewalk to the property owner. That, in the discussions that I had with the police chief and the public works director, that is the missing, that's been the missing piece. So we've been out there without the ability to recover the cost for removing the snow on our own if the property owner declines to do so. And that's probably the best way I can summarize the revision.
Right.
It promotes and keeps intact the intention of the existing bylaw in terms of where it applies, but it provides teeth for us to, if we don't see compliance, remove the snow ourselves, the town to remove the snow and to recover the costs. We believe that just the mere notification to the property owners in the commercial corridors that this is a tool that would be available, we hope will promote compliance with the bylaw, greater compliance.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Selectman.
Anything else? Okay. Mr. Prisco?
So we're not gonna go through each article tonight.
For recommendations, that'll be the next item on the agenda, but I wanted to call out what's on the warrant and what's not prior to your signing the warrant.
We are going to go through the articles.
Okay, but we're gonna sign it before we do that.
That's correct, but that's not uncommon in terms of the board's practice.
Make sure I understand how we're gonna go
Yeah,
about it.
unless you
Once
wanted
we
to add,
sign it,
unless you
we're not
wanted to,
adding any articles.
unless you wanted to add an article, you
That
can
we-
always pass it over or
Yeah.
delete it later.
I'm good.
Mr. Chairman, I move to sign the October 5th, 2015 town meeting warrant.
Second.
Motion by Mr. O'Leary, seconded by Mr. Yule.
Mr.
Any
Chairman.
further discussion, Mr.?
I'm sorry, just, you both have reminded me of one thing that was brought up, and that was with regard to potential acquisition of land owned by the town of Reading. I did talk with the Reading town manager by mutual agreement.
That's why I was thinking about bringing it up, but then I said, you know what, we're just gonna leave it alone, because
Certainly. So I did talk with the town manager, and it was his belief that there's a couple of parcels that they would want us to look at, and at this point in time, it might be premature to have a warrant article, but that a June town meeting warrant article would be appropriate. But I did speak with the town manager on that.
it's,
Thank you.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous?
And can we to sign copy with some people?
Yep. You witnessing this?
Yeah.
Okay.
We have,
A free act indeed, okay?
what are they here
Is that a
for?
blue pen?
No, black.
Then they-
Okay. Well, Magnolia Drive is on the warrant.
Is there a law on that, or is that just like a tradition?
Well, we can get to
It's an
it
unwritten
first, sequence.
Okay.
Okay. I thought you were about to
Are you
talk
here
about-
for any particular article in the warrant?
No, Leah had put a certificate of compliance request in for do not disturb here on Long Meadow Way. I think it was second on the agenda, or whatever that meant.
Oh, I think you're looking for the Conservation Commission meeting, sir?
Yeah.
You're in the wrong meeting.
Could you show me?
Yeah,
Wrong
actually, there
meeting.
it is, yeah.
That's okay.
Right church, wrong pew.
Okay, good thing you asked.
Thank you, John.
No, he's got his badge out tonight. How's it going, John?
If the board members don't
Get a
mind,
cold?
the young lady from Magnolia Road, I think is here, right? Maybe we could discuss that while,
Yeah, well, we gotta, yeah, we go to the agenda.
I think it's
and
out
put
of the
that one
cycle,
order.
though.
Yep.
so,
Next item on our agenda.
Thank you, John.
And acceptance, what the hell is that?
yeah, there's a separate, you have it, you find it?
Well, I got the list.
Okay.
I was just, they're all in here.
Oh, yeah, I have a different one than you.
Which one do you have?
Mine,
Where's the Magnolia article?
Number
Which one?
19.
19.
Article 14.
14.
14. Yes, okay.
This is what I have, though. That's different.
Yeah, yours has more language on it, too.
Right. You have an old one. We have a separate, there's actually a separate, if you go back to the,
This is what
to the
was in
meeting
the...
packet, Bob?
Just for clarification. I'm looking at the warrant articles in the packet.
The warrant that was in the scanned packet on Friday was the version sent to town council.
Okay.
We were expecting comments back, which we received today. If you were in the folder
Yeah.
for tonight's meeting, there should be a separate
Yes,
document.
okay. Yeah,
Where,
okay.
where would that be?
So if you're in the folder for the meeting dated 9/8/2015,
Yeah,
you'll see
okay.
a file called
All
OTM warrant dash
No,
final.
thanks. See, I generally copy them out, put them somewhere else, but...
I'm sorry, I
Okay.
should
Yeah,
have clarified
no
that.
problem.
Oh, I see what you did, okay.
So, Mr. Chairman, we're
Final,
gonna
okay,
take
got it.
Article 14 out of order at this particular point in time?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I move to recommend Article 14, sale of parkland, Magnolia Road, map 33, parcel 71.
Second.
May I hear a second? Second by
Yes, I
Mr.
said
Yule.
second.
Discussion.
So, I'm definitely in favor of the article. What I'm concerned about is I know in the past, there had been some discussion about having the property owner purchase some of this property, but I think under this case where the town has made, I think, some hiccups along the way, that there should be no sale, right? Or at least if it's gonna be anything, it should be $1. If there's gonna be any acquisition, I just don't think that the property owner should.
The sale of town-owned land requires that we go out to bid.
Yeah, we have a policy that we have to, and we have some laws that we have to follow, but the first thing we have to do is get it out of
I
parkland
understand.
through the legislation.
So that's what this is
So,
about.
and this will allow us then the opportunity, then we can determine what we're gonna do and how we're gonna do it.
Well, I just don't want, we want to send the homeowner away with, at least give her some
Well,
expectation.
let's define the process. It's currently in parkland, right?
Right.
So it requires a vote of the state legislature to take it out of
Mhm.
parkland, right? It's like conservation land.
Mhm.
So that's step one. Then the board has, basic policy of setting a value, and we can set the value to something. But I believe, because it's disposition of town-owned land, that we have to go out to bid. Am I correct, Mr. O'Leary?
I'm sorry, I got distracted.
It works.
Am I correct, Mr. O'Leary?
I believe you are. The thing is, as far as, how we, what price we set on it, you have to go out to bid for it. And then, but we can determine a minimum bid, and then we can determine if there's more than one bidder, it doesn't have to go to the highest bidder. It goes what's in the town's best interest, the property owner's best interest, and everybody else's best interest.
Okay.
So, there have been instances
I
where
just
there have
wanted
been
to-
higher bidders, but we have sold it to someone who has bid less. You know, as far as, you know, what do we anticipate the cost of this homeowner to be? I mean, there was some cost incurred to the town for acquisition of it. Combination of, was some back taxes that were owed. I believe we did take some for tax title. We did two things. When we took it by eminent domain, but we also took it for tax title. And I believe by state statute, we have to recoup. We may have to recoup what that was. It didn't seem to be a lot of money. I mean, it was less than what we were going to pay them to take it anyway. So I think we're somewhat restricted. I don't know if we can make any, you know, give any false hope or promises, but, you know, my
I'm just trying to
intention
set
is,
some
to allow the abutter to purchase it at the least possible price without costing the taxpayers any money, or incurring any further, you know, and get us, just refund us what was owed. So whatever's allowed.
Well, I need to know what those numbers are before I would, I mean, because I'm not so sure I'm 100% in agreement. I think there is obviously some issues with the way this went down. And I don't know where the fault lies, but it seems like the homeowner's getting the brunt of it here. So,
Well, I think, just if I might, I think you put the cart before the horse. I think we gotta get it out of this.
I
We have to get it into a position
That's all
where
this
we're able to
article
do
does.
something
I
with it. That's,
understand it
you know, we
does,
can
I
take care
know.
of that.
I'm just trying to set some expectation. I want to let the young lady walk out the door tonight and have, all of a sudden, she gets hit with this, you know, big bill that she's not gonna plan for in advance. You know, October town meeting's only a few weeks away, and then we have to get through the legislation, which I think we'll have a good luck getting it through pretty quickly. But I don't, if there's some expectation that there's gonna be a significant cost upon her part, she should know that going out the door, at least the potential of it. Because a lot of people don't have that kind of money just laying around,
Right.
and we don't wanna, we already know they're already in trouble,
Yeah,
right?
we
We
have-
already know.
Yeah, we have, you know, we just have to do the numbers again. There were two parcels
Okay.
involved.
I would like to
you know,
get
with
that
the
information.
people, the previous owners, there were two parcels involved, and what they got was a net amount of whatever we agreed to take it for by eminent domain. The pro tanto award was gonna be X number of dollars less what was for back taxes. So $15,000 resonates in my head for the two parcels. This is only one parcel, of which, I think, and again, I could be wrong, but $2,900 was back taxes that was owed, which we'd have to recuperate, plus whatever we paid out the net amount. I think they get paid out about $11,000 for the two parcels.
So we have to make a
That was the
decision.
net amount.
We, you know,
Total amount was
we
$15,000.
paid-
So whatever was
We
a
paid money for that.
portion,
So-
whatever was a portion for those two parcels, and that's, that could be researched,
Okay.
is what the town had to put out in order to take possession of it. So, and again, it isn't necessarily the town's fault for taking the land, or the town's fault for what occurred here. My belief is the tax title people who did the research on the title of the property certainly has some culpability.
Well, I think the town does too.
You know,
We're not scot-free on this one, but, okay, I get it. I think I think she's listening clearly. I just don't wanna,
If she'd like to step up, and if she has any other questions, this would be the time to ask them. Name and address.
Valerie Taylor, 13 Magnolia Road, North Reading. My understanding is the pro tantum was paid. However, my question is, was that land assessed at a value without restrictions? Because my understanding is if that land's conveyed back, it would be just for the purpose of a septic system, which hypothetically would decrease the value of that property.
That, if I may, Mr. Chairman, that depends.
Okay.
What was voted the other night for you was to authorize you to go on town-owned land to check for the septic, do the testing for the septic system. That was not, the board did not take a position, if we were to convey the property to you, as to what it would be good for, what the uses could be. That's the appropriate time. What we did is we just basically gave you a license to go on our property to test it for a septic system. That's all. That does not place any other restriction on the property should be deeded to you. That'll be done once the board conveys it.
Right.
And we have a laundry list of things, and sometimes we limit it, sometimes we don't.
Okay.
Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't.
Mr. Yule.
Yeah, I want to try to understand something here. Some of the numbers that you did throw around, the $11,000, $15,000. What is she vulnerable to in this situation? dollars and cents wise. I think that's what, that was probably your main concern.
The town paid approximately again, I'm going from a poor memory here, approximately $15,000 for 2 parcels. All right, so how that was divided up, I don't know. But the parcel in question, my understanding is, part of what the pro tanto was, say it's $15,000 for the 2 lots, less $2,900, you know, or the $3,000, whatever it was, net, for tax title purposes, because
They owed the
they're
town.
back taxes.
At
So
the
we,
time, the owner.
so in order to
owned-
clear the title, we
the
took
town
it by
owned.
eminent domain and we took it for tax title.
The property that she bought.
No,
No,
No.
no,
No.
she didn't buy it.
No,
She didn't buy it.
these are the properties she's trying to acquire.
This is the property that happens to have her
One of
septic system on it,
Right, okay,
which somewhere along the way got lost
okay.
in the shuffle.
So we're giving
So the
them
town
another
the town has basically put out $15,000, I think that's what the numbers are, for these 2 lots. How it's apportioned between this particular lot that she's interested in and the one she's not, I don't know. You know, I don't know if it's,
and it's in the record.
yeah, I don't know if it's 10 and 5 or 8 and 8, 8 and 5, 7, I don't know. We can research that as to how much we paid for each parcel. But the one in question also had back taxes due on it. I believe we're restricted to a certain degree as to, you can't give away stuff that your back taxes are owed on. You know, you have to
Right.
recoup at least that. And again, should the board decide, the majority decide to recoup less, that's the majority of the board at that particular time. All this does, this article right now, is just
No,
allow
that,
us to-
that part I understand, that part I understand, I just haven't get to the dollars and cents
You know,
here.
and
It
as
sounds
far
like
as-
she's gonna be putting out about anywhere from $11,000 to $15,000.
It could be less because that was for 2 parcels and we're only talking about
Right,
one.
so 7,500.
We're only talking, and we're only looking for one parcel to be taken out.
Okay.
The other one is gonna remain as parkland. So, but in relation to any restrictions on the property, that's entirely up to the board at the time we put it out the bid and convey it and decide to sell it. All right, and, you know, sometimes we say it must be conjoined with the other to make one, so it's not a
Right, right,
buildable
right.
lot, and sometimes it says, you know, no other structures, sometimes it's unlimited.
Okay.
You know, so if they wanted to put an addition on, you could allow for that.
Steve,
If they want to put a shed or a garage.
A question I have, because you would probably know better. Could a portion of that lot be sold? Could it be divided?
Not unless, once it comes out of parkland,
Yeah.
if we would then subdivide it and go through that whole exercise, sure, but why would we?
Yeah.
What is it, about a half an acre?
Right.
Yeah, it's a half an acre.
Oh,
So,
okay.
it's a half an acre, so I think the game.
No, I just
yeah,
asked the question.
Could it be, yeah, but I think the game plan would be to, you know, sell it to the direct abutter for whatever the price is gonna be and allow them, the only restriction I'd be looking at just off the top of my head is to be conjoined with the adjacent parcel and make one parcel, so it wouldn't be buildable.
Mhm.
And then, you know, if they wanna put a garage, or they want an addition on their house, and go for it, you know.
Mr. Yule?
The last meeting, that's what I thought we were doing, that she was only gonna take enough property to deal with the septic system. I don't think until now, you're saying it's either the whole lot or nothing. It sounds
Well, there were
like-
two, we have to get the one lot out of, before we can do anything, we have to
Right.
get the one lot in question out, but there were 2 lots, and what she said was she wasn't interested in one of
Interested in
them.
that, right.
She was only interested in this one,
Right.
so that's the one we're going after.
So it has to be the whole lot, not a portion.
I mean, keep in mind, we took the property to turn it into recreation area. So putting it back on the tax roll, right, wasn't the original intent. It was to take it off the tax roll.
Right.
In this case, this woman's got a big problem. She's got a septic system. She bought the house, didn't necessarily know that it was on that property.
A lot of people
And
didn't know.
We have an opportunity to remedy it for her, and
These are the steps we have to go through.
Okay.
it's a multi-step process, so first step is town meeting, second step is wait for the legislature to take action.
And then the
Once
board can
that's
take other
done,
action.
assuming that they, and I don't see why they wouldn't, allow it back on a tax, on a regular land roll, then we can make the appropriate decision on
And
exactly.
again, by the
what
time
we're
that
gonna
all
do.
comes around, it'll probably be spring anyway, or close to summer. There could be a change on the board too, but,
Mhm.
so it's,
There's no more reconstruction going on the septic system on that land, is there?
At this point, I don't have access to do anything with the septic system. I don't even have the ability to pump the septic system.
There's a license.
No, that's what I was asking.
There's a license to test.
The license
For
is
the
to
land,
test.
the land, which expired today, I think, if I'm not mistaken. And that
No,
testing.
I guess I was asking more of a general question. Does your current septic system need more work?
I have a
Yeah.
current septic system that is failed.
It's failed. That's
It's
why.
failed.
septic
That's
system.
why this is such an urgent thing.
Right.
Okay.
You know, they have a real situation.
And I don't think it's premature. I understand that there's procedures that need to be in place, but I don't think it's premature to have a conversation about the cost. Because
Mhm.
if I have a bill at $8,000, I may not have the opportunity to remedy it by providing this new septic system. I may need to look at alternative methods, like moving a well, that might be more cost effective.
Is there anything that can be waived to allow her to address that issue?
No,
Depending upon
we
the
can't
issue.
convey the land to her at this point.
I mean, we can easily grant, Mr. Chairman, through you,
We could grant a license?
grant a license to be able to pump the system,
Yeah.
obviously, if that were to
Yeah.
take place. I mean,
That's what I was thinking.
I would, and I think that could.
Are you
easily
requesting
be able
that?
to be done, if that needed to be done.
As of right now, I don't think it needs to be pumped. I'm just saying it's failed, so it's failed on one level. I don't know if it's failed on other levels.
And plus you have the issue of it being too close to a well,
Which is a major issue.
which is a major issue, correct?
It's under code by almost 70 feet.
Yeah.
With a family of 5. So yeah, it's a problem.
Yeah. Right.
And then to know that this may, be remediated in a year or even past that, I understand that, I respect the process, but there's things that I need to do as a homeowner to put things in place, water testing, alternate water supplies, things like that I need to know.
But gaining possession of the land isn't gonna necessarily solve that yet because of the process that it has to go through.
Right.
We can't speed up we can ask our legislators to try and put it on the fast track and get it through and explain the situation, and maybe that can occur, which is fine, which then allows us to step the process up. But even the process, once that happens and is enacted, it still takes us probably 45 days to.
Yeah, what I'm hearing though is
Yeah, she's
that-
got public health issues, yeah.
she needs to know what kind of budget she has to deal with this. And therefore is looking for a price for this piece of property that we can't yet convey to her.
And we don't have that information available yet.
No, but we could come up
But
with.
we'll work on it.
Yeah.
For our next meeting, we could ask the town administrator to pull those records, and our next meeting, at least have a discussion of what we might do, which might help her out.
And then we can
Again,
do what we-
timing problem is one thing.
Right.
Her budgetary problem, if I'm hearing you right, is,
Yeah, it'd be nice to
right
know.
now, she's gotta make some
It's
decisions.
imperative that I know. I mean, and I think that I'm not opposed to, if that cost is, $8,000, or if they're half acres, I'm just going loosely that it would cost about $8,000 if they're equal halves that we're taking. I'm not opposed to a land swap, which was loosely discussed, last time too, if I'm looking at a $7,000, cost to do this.
But
That might
again,
make sense for my family, but I know it's premature, but it's worth, being transparent about where I'm at, about my ability to pay a
Yeah.
bill for that.
That's the first
and the challenge here is that we don't know what the board's gonna vote, but I know I wouldn't be in favor of selling to you for 7,000. I would be pushing very hard to get something significantly lower than that, because I still think the town has some fault in the whole process. I still think you have some recourse with your title.
How does the town have fault in the process, Michael?
We bought a piece of property with a septic system on it, and we didn't even know it. How do you do that? How does the town go into an acquisition and not know that? I'm sorry, Bob, that's 1,000% wrong.
Mr.
I just think one of the hurdles that we're trying to get through from the town's perspective, I think that Valerie is also trying to get through as well, is that the septic system was unpermitted as far as we could tell. There wasn't any record of its construction. And I think that contributed to the town at the time not knowing that it was there. But not disagreeing that this is definitely a problematic situation.
Right, so And again, the owners of the property were properly notified several times over during the process that the taking was gonna be taking place. Deeded or overtook the pro tanto award, you know, whether they knew it was there or not, I would assume they may have, but don't know. So again, I don't see the town culpability of not knowing there was a septic system on there, really.
Right, it's
Yeah.
buried.
Wasn't permitted, you know, how would we know? Yeah, how would you know? So it wasn't permitted, wouldn't know, and if the property owner didn't say, hey, wait a second, don't take that because my septic system's there, or my driveway's there, how would we know? You know, so, and each one of the parcels was, I mean, there were other ones that we culled out and divvied up and swapped off, and there's a whole bunch of other transactions that occurred with this whole plan. And, so, I mean, I guess I don't see the same level of
I'll
culpability as
commit-
Mr. Prisco does.
I'll commit to sitting down with Michael,
Yeah,
pulling the numbers together.
that's a
have
great,
them
yep,
For discussion at our
absolutely.
next
I think
meeting.
that's a good idea, and I think it at least give
And that'll give you
some
some sense
indication
of
as to
what the options are,
Well,
and a sense of where the board's
what
gonna
our
be on
options
this.
are, too.
Right.
Mhm.
On the,
In
on
the
the
meantime, in
motion,
the meantime, I'm still in favor of moving forward with town meeting action to get this out of Parkland so that we can do something with it.
on the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. That was Article 14. right?
14.
So it's recommend.
Okay.
I'm not going to assign articles tonight. We'll do that at our next meeting, as Kate's not here,
Let's see here.
unless someone has an objection to that. Nope. Okay.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, Article 1, shall we start with?
Article 1, let's
Thank you,
go
Bradley.
through them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Article 1, hear and act on reports of town offices and committees. Mr. Chairman, I move to recommend
Second.
Article 1.
I hear a second from Mr. Yule, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Prior year's bills, do we have a number on that at this
We don't, but we will
Early
have at
date.
least one bill that will need to be paid.
one bill?
Yeah.
Okay.
At least one.
Do we have a recommendation, or are we going to wait for town meeting?
Mr. Chairman, I move to recommend at town meeting Article 2, prior year bills.
Second.
Motion by Mr. O'Leary, second by Mr. Yule, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Article 3, transfer funds to the Capital Improvement Stabilization Fund.
We don't know if we have any money, right? So, Mr. Chairman, I move to recommend at town meeting.
We don't
Second.
have a number yet?
I think he's speaking to the funding source.
Oh, okay. All right. Do I hear a
I did
second?
second,
Second by
I did
Mr. Yule. Discussion, hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Article 4.
Once again, same situation. Mr. Chairman, I move to recommend at town meeting.
Second.
Article 4, appropriate money to stabilization.
Sorry. I knew what you
Seconded
were
by
gonna say.
Mr. Yule. Discussion, hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? At our next meeting, if there's been clarity on any of these and we elect to make a recommendation, review them, we will, okay? Article 5, Mr. O'Leary.
5, we get anything yet? Same thing?
That's correct.
Okay.
Okay.
I don't anticipate a recommendation.
Right, Mr. Chairman, I move to recommend at town meeting Article 5, transfer of funds to other post-employment benefits liability trust fund.
Second.
Motion by Mr. O'Leary, seconded by Mr. Yule. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Unanimous. Article 6.
Mr. Chairman, I move to recommend at town meeting Article 6, appropriate money for special counsel legal expenses.
Second.
Motion by Mr. O'Leary, seconded by Mr. Yule. Just a note on this, that I suspect that we will come to some decision at our next meeting as to what we're going to do.
That's our expectation.
Article 7, Mr. O'Leary.
Let's see. You tell me what you want to do.
I would suggest a recommendation at town meeting,
Right.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, I move to recommend at town meeting Article 7, amend fiscal year 2016 operating budget.
Second.
Motion by Mr. O'Leary, seconded by Mr. Yule. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. There will be a couple of recommendations at our next meeting.
That's correct.
We have a reval number?
I believe it's $76,000, if I remember correctly, the cost for the revaluation.
Yeah,
Yeah. Mr. Chairman, I move to recommend Article 8, fund fiscal year 2017 revaluation.
Second.
And what was the number?
I believe it's
Eight.
76.
Oh,
86 or 68?
76.
76.
Somewhere in between.
I believe it was 76, but I'll
Approximately
confirm.
76K. Article 9,
You
fund,
gonna vote on that one?
oh, I'm sorry, all
Okay.
in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, unanimous. Article 9, fund water permitting.
Do I have a number, or you?
So this is the first of 3 articles relative to water. This would be the reappropriation of the appropriation from June of 2014 to make repairs to the anchor bolts at the Tower Hill water tank. It would be for water permitting and engineering support of the MWRA water connection project. And Public Works Director is here. You could speak to the breakdown of the expenditure, Mr. Chairman, if you'd like.
What is the amount?
Yeah.
It's $75,000 to be
70?
$75,000 to be
75.
reappropriated.
This is for Article 9.
Correct.
Okay.
And these are for just permits? Finish the permitting
I
process?
defer to the Public Works Director who's here, if you wouldn't mind, Mr. Chairman.
And we have the funding source?
It's an existing appropriation that will not be used for that project, reappropriated.
3 separate tasks. 2 are permitting. There's a permit with the MWRA to be a member, number 1. There's a interbasin transfer permit with the state, and the third would be support for the negotiation with Reading. So it's 3 separate tasks. We anticipate the draft EIR will be done sometime Christmas time, and in the next 2 months or so, we get comments back from the state, and then we'll be executing the permits in that time frame. So we're trying to avoid waiting till town meeting in July 1st to proceed with the project.
Just as an update for the board members that haven't been directly involved, we have met with the town of Reading on 2 occasions, and we have met with MWRA and the town of Reading just last week. Just informal discussions, but aimed at, moving this thing along, and this additional funding will allow us to get some things done a little sooner so that we can meet our schedule of July 2019, July 1, 2019. Yes, Michael?
And at that meeting, it was recommended that we present a very small presentation at our October town meeting to really start getting the information out to the public. Reading's recommendation was the more we can get our public informed on this, the better. The earlier, the better. So, I'm gonna work on drafting something, send it to Michael, and then Bob, myself, and Michael are going, I think, next week to Reading, sit with them to go over the presentation. And then Reading and MWRA recommended that they actually attend October town meeting and support us in the presentation.
Mr. Chairman, I move to recommend Article 9, water fund permitting.
Do I hear a second?
second.
Second by Mr. Yule. Any more discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Article 10, fund the MWRA water connection engineering study.
Mr. Chairman, I move to recommend Article 10,
Let's-
fund water connection engineering
Is
study.
that coming out of that same pool of money?
No, that
No.
would be potential additional appropriation of funding. The intention of this funding would be to allow the town to get advanced work done prior to July 1st of 2016 with regard to the engineering and design. The work will largely involve engineering review and survey in the field in the second half of fiscal year 2016, if approved. There's a scope of work that I believe is still under review with regard to the work, our consulting engineer, and I believe the cost is still under review as well. We'll have that number at the hearing on September 21st.
So we don't have the number yet.
That's correct.
And it's going to come out of water surplus?
The potential funding
Or-
source, if not the,
Or the capital, one of the capital funds?
correct, yeah.
Okay. So Mr. O'Leary made a motion to recommend. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
dollar amount to be determined. Article 11,
Mr.
appropriate funds for little school replacement repair.
What do we have for sources on this?
That's my big concern on this one.
We have to put the money up front in order to get reimbursed, right?
That's correct. We'd have to have an appropriation in place for the full amount of the recommendation for the feasibility, from the feasibility study. I think that the challenge is that we won't necessarily have all of the results of the feasibility study in time for the October town meeting, so we may be working with the best estimate provided by the designer or project manager. Continue to have dialogue with the school superintendent with regard to this project, but
And
our
it's
hope is...
possible we could pass over it at town meeting,
Good,
I
so,
would think.
Mr. Chairman, I move to recommend at town meeting Article 11, appropriate funds for little school roof replacement repair.
Second.
Motion by Mr. O'Leary, seconded by Mr. Yule. Further discussion. Just a comment that school business, the state school MSBA has approved the project based on an estimate. And
Believe
there were
that-
two numbers, right? One was depending on whether they had to replace the roof or just repair the roof.
That's correct. There was a range of costs depending upon the recommendation. We've been accepted into the accelerated repair program. The MSBA has assigned a designer and a project manager to the project where further feasibility evaluation will occur. And depending upon the results, we'll have an estimated budget.
You know, I guess I look at this as kind of a conundrum because we're not gonna have the information, real information for October town meeting, I would guess.
No way.
And I suppose they don't wanna wait until June town meeting. And I don't wanna have a special town meeting.
And, Mr. Chairman, through
Yes.
you, the MSBA's accelerated repair program has benchmark timelines that we have to comply within, and the June town meeting would be outside the period at which we'd have to give an indication to MSBA of our
I
commitments to
assume
the
that,
project.
yeah. Mr. Yule?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. Do we have a percentage of reimbursement from MSBA at this point?
We do, we're anticipated it would be 46.58% eligible for reimbursement.
Thank you.
That's if we do the entire roof, right?
I'm not certain if there's a restriction on that percentage or not. I couldn't answer that right
Because the
now.
options are just doing a minor repair, or I think it's a
I don't think
third
there's
or
anything
half the
minor.
roof?
I don't think there's anything minor about it, but.
Yeah.
A repair or replacement, those were the
Right.
options, yes.
Okay.
For the segment of the building that's in question.
So I think repair, it sounds to me like, if you're putting a new membrane down, that would be a repair. And if you were doing the underlayment, insulation, and other repairs to planking or whatever's under, would be a major repair.
So can we
And
just
they
have a
don't-
realistic discussion about this, though? Where is the money gonna come from to do it?
It's.
We don't wanna set them, if we don't have the
it's
money to
gonna
do
ha-
it.
Well, we're gonna have to bond it.
Right,
Yeah.
if the roof needs to be repaired, it needs to be repaired, I mean, it's,
Or we decide, another option is free cash, but we know that's gonna be less than last year, and we've got other things already held out for it, so it's gonna be a tough decision, but it's even tougher when you don't know.
Yeah.
That's why I'm concerned, is I doubt if we'll have
too.
this information for October town meeting. And, then what do you do? I suppose, the bonding would make it easier, because you could,
Right.
an
You
proven
borrow some
amount,
out
then bond it, and then you only borrow the money when you need it. And you only borrow what you need. But then you have to have some amount not to exceed, I guess. And it'll have to be more than what your estimates are, based on what we've already learned when it comes to school projects. Mr. Yule?
Yes, being that we're on the fast track with the MSBA, we really have no choice but to put this in the October meeting.
Right.
We can't play with you.
otherwise you're out of this whole round of funding,
Right.
and the repair still needs to be done, and you end up doing it
So,
out of your
we're
operating budget
committed.
or?
One way or the other, we're committed.
Well, the repair got moved up as a result of this, so.
Right, because money was available.
All right,
So the motion was to recommend a town meeting.
right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Fund repairs to town buildings, Article 12.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
so again, as I indicated previously, Public Works Director has a more than all-inclusive list of building repair needs that are out there, and I'll be working with him to prioritize them to fit within the traditional amount that we've had available. Once we have that listing identified, we'll present it to the board. I expect that to be at the September 21st meeting. At that same meeting, as we did last year, we'll provide an update as to projects previously approved under this program, so that the board is briefed as to the progress made. But that would be available on the 21st.
What are we talking, 50,000?
It's generally $50,000,
Right.
yeah.
Mr. Yule?
Yeah, so this is just a general upkeep for the buildings? I mean, $50,000?
Well, we've spelled out specific things the money is gonna be spent for, and we will do that before we vote at town meeting.
Okay.
Michael Prisco has asked for an update of what the previous 50,000 has been spent for, or what it's allocated for, and what the completion dates are.
So, what's the wishes of the board? Do we want to recommend a town meeting or recommend now? I mean,
I'd recommend now.
yeah.
I think we should recommend now.
Yeah, so do I. Mr. Chairman, I move to recommend Article 12, fund repairs to town buildings.
Second.
Motion by Mr. O'Leary, second by Mr. Yule. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Article 13, appropriate supplement funds for J.T. Berry Lowell Road property. And this is
Recommend to
There was a
town meeting.
hold, placeholder,
Yeah.
right?
placeholder,
Recommend for town meeting.
Yeah,
recommended
so,
town meeting.
Mr. Chairman, I move to recommend a town meeting.
Second.
Article
Hoping not to
13.
have to spend any money.
Article 13, appropriate supplemental funds for J.T. Berry Lowell
Okay.
Road property.
Motion by Mr. O'Leary, second by Mr. Yule.
Yes.
Any other comments? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Unanimous.
Article 14, we already took care of that. That was
14's
to,
been
that was
covered.
to recommend, right?
Yeah.
Article 15, Carpenter Drive. Mr. Chairman, I move to recommend Article 15, grant easement Carpenter Drive.
Second.
Motion by Mr. O'Leary, second by Mr. Yule. Any discussion?
We had plenty the
I
last
think we've
meeting.
already talked about that.
I want to vote no so bad.
What?
I'm mumbling to myself.
Yeah, you don't have to recommend it, but.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
That was,
Recommendation
Recommended,
is
right?
3-1 with one absent.
see, that was a recommend, right?
That was to recommend.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I move to recommend Article 16, amend Code General Bylaws, Chapter 1, General Provisions, editorial revisions.
Second.
You want to make a comment on this, Michael?
I would just note that it essentially is a bylaw that would give the town clerk the authority to renumber any sections of our existing bylaws, rather than have to require that each time we make a change to the bylaw that it grants that authority. It would be standing authority to do so. It would eliminate a step each time we have to go to town meeting.
So we have a motion by Mr. O'Leary, second by
Yes.
Mr. Yule. Any further questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous? Article 17. Mr. Gilberto.
Mr. Chairman, this article would establish procedure with regard to visual presentations, particularly electronic presentations made at town meeting. The intention is to create a process similar to what's required for a paper handout at town meeting, where an electronic presentation would be reviewed prior to it being placed on a town-owned laptop and projected through town-owned equipment onto a town-owned screen. I think the intention is twofold. First, to protect the integrity of the electronic equipment in the facility where the meeting is being held, and also to provide a structure for a review and approval of a presentation prior to a town meeting. As you'll see, it does not apply to town departments, boards, or committees in the way it's been crafted. However, it would apply for an outside presentation.
Mr. Chairman, without seeing it, I have an issue, I could have an issue. You know, I'm not looking to editorialize or amend anybody's presentation to town meeting and determine what's
Right, it's a fine line
okay and what's not
here.
okay. And I'm not looking to stifle anybody's rights to voice their opinion and articulate a position on any issue, whether it be in favor or opposed to something that this board has decided, or the school committee, or CPC, or anybody else. So, until I see the actual language and presentation and have a little discussion on it, I'm not ready to make a
10
recommendation.
days.
Huh?
10 days seems like a lot. That's being recommended, right?
Yeah, I don't disagree with that either. 10 days, I mean, it might be 10 minutes for some of us.
I mean,
Yeah.
is there any way to word it where there's some discretion can be taken? I mean, right now, they're really, if you read it, at least to me, when I read it, there's nothing subjective about it. It's 10 days or it's just not happening. And I agree with Mr. O'Leary here. I mean, this thing's very fluid sometimes when you go into town meeting. You may not have 10 minutes, 10 days.
We haven't had some of our town meeting presentations made until the weekend before town meeting. I mean,
We can't complain.
Well, again, yes.
That's why.
That's what I said, 10 minutes before, never mind 10 days.
Yeah,
I think, Mr. Chairman, through you, the intention is to ensure that a presentation that's made at town meeting and put up on a PowerPoint screen at town meeting is determined by the moderator to be relevant to the discussion of a particular warrant article. That's the intention. And I also think that there was a desire to try to provide a structure that would be something that could be managed in advance of town meeting. Certainly, if there are concerns or comments that the board would like to see us look further at, we could do that. But the intention was to try to provide that structure, again, similar to how materials handed out in paper copy are provided at town meeting.
yeah, I can understand the issues, but the town meeting is the moderator's responsibility. And this is shades of restricting people's rights to speak
At an open town meeting.
at an open town meeting. And, I know, what brought this up,
Mhm.
what happened at the last town meeting, but, the moderator has control to stop it.
I mean, right, I think that was the issue, is he didn't have an opportunity to review that presentation before it went up there, at least in any detail, so.
Well, that's
Yeah,
no
but
more or less than the opportunity to know what someone's going to say when they get up to speak.
Oh, I know, I
Yeah,
agree,
so
that's
it's-
why I'm not, when I read this, it struck me as.
I'm not
concerning.
enamored by the idea yet.
Right.
Mr. Yule?
Yeah, and historically, I don't think this has ever been done. I mean, obviously, that's why we're coming up with this, but restricting somebody or getting approval prior to is an infringement of, freedom of speech in that regard. I know there's a risk, because somebody can put anything they want up there, and we're at risk to that, but to Bob's point, I think the moderator has complete.
This has been submitted by the town clerk.
That's correct.
I recommend we invite her to our next meeting, and we make no decision at this point.
Right.
I mean, I'm against it as it's written.
Well,
Yeah,
I'll tell you right now.
yeah, so am I,
But
but
the town administrator did bring up this issue associated with security. I'd
I'm
like
okay
to
with
learn a little
that.
bit more.
Yeah,
no,
that's
that's
different.
all right. If they want to
Yeah.
use our equipment to make a presentation, then, we have a right to
Make sure there's
to
no
make sure that.
malware or something.
And
Right.
I think, I'd like to
That's
hear a little
okay.
bit more on that.
I'm okay with
And I
that
think
anyway,
we
but if
can
they want
base
to
it
bring in
on-
their own little projector and do it, go
Right.
for it.
I would like to base it on, understanding that around the security makes more sense to me. But everything else that's kind of the way worded in here,
Yeah, because there, at times people come in the town meeting
Yeah.
with their USB sticks, and they could be spreading a virus or
yeah,
something.
no, that's
So
fair.
do we want to say recommended town meeting at this
Yeah.
point? Because this is going to be going to press, right?
Yeah,
That's correct.
Yeah, okay.
So, Mr. Chairman, I move to recommend at town meeting, Article 17, amend code, general bylaws, Chapter 172, town meeting visual having trouble with that, presentations.
Second.
Second by Mr. Yule. Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Article 18.
What is this one about?
Funerals and interment. Mr. Chairman, I'm happy to make a brief presentation. Public Works Director is
Sure.
here, he could expound on it. I think that largely, probably the best way I can explain this is the revisions of the bylaw are intended to put into writing the practices that already exist in the Public Works Department, particularly with regard to some of the restrictions that are in place regarding the number of individuals, adult individuals that would be in a single grave. I'd note that the notice period remains 24 hours as was previously in the bylaw. But, and again, I'll ask the Public Works Director to correct me if I'm stating anything that's incorrect. This would provide the opportunity where if there were an incident that were to come up that were to divert town resources, or that the town would put the town in a situation where it could not schedule a burial 24 hours from when it's been requested, then the Public Works Director would have the opportunity and the ability to delay or to otherwise schedule that interment. And I believe, and again, I asked the Public Works Director to elaborate, but I believe that that occurs now in terms of informal conversations between the Public Works Director and the Funeral Department, or the cemetery foreman in the Public Works Department. But I would defer to the Public Works Director further.
The TA is correct. The three things I'm looking to modify: the one about allowing a urn and a casket in one grave. Everybody does it. We've never changed our bylaw to reflect it. I did a survey of all us surrounding communities, just about everybody allows that. Section C, the language currently in our bylaw is a little confusing. There's three things that have to happen as part of a burial. There's a state permit process, which is electronic. We need permission from the person who owns the grave to bury somebody in the grave. And then there's fees for the interment. We've had some situations where I think the language is kind of confusing, where we don't get permission to bury somebody in the grave till after the burial. So we're trying to make that clearer to everybody. And the first article, section A, same thing, 24 hours. Good example this winter. We actually literally had to shovel the cemetery out and shovel out to the grave. So between that and digging a hole, it's impossible to do in 24 hours. So there are some situations where due to adverse weather or things like that, we just can't get done in 24 hours. I mean, currently, we ask for 48 hours, and sometimes, due to circumstances, it's less, and we try to work with the various funeral homes. But right now, we're trying to just put the language in there that we actually use right now.
So Dick, is it the funeral homes that basically get this process going?
The majority are funeral homes. Occasionally, an individual will come in and try to start the process. Funeral homes know the business obviously very well, so they know our names to do, but mostly funeral homes, correct.
So basically, the current bylaw requires 48 hours notice, is that correct? 24. And you want to change it to 48?
No, leave it at 24.
No, leave it at 24.
But there's no language in it that says if something is, cannot allow it in 24 hours, we don't, it doesn't really say what we do.
Okay, would something be, you can't get staff to take care of it, or is it?
I'll give you 6 reasons. One is that they already have a pre-scheduled interment at the same time. Number one. Number two, equipment availability, because we share equipment with other departments. We don't have dedicated staff and equipment for the cemetery department. That's how we
So
keep our.
water emergency or something like?
Right.
Okay.
Hidden underground conditions. Last winter, we had frost.
Yeah, sure.
And we had ledge. So sometimes you find those things and it just takes longer to get it out of the ground. Adverse weather, heavy rain, lightning, things like that, you can't have a crew out in the middle of a lightning storm. And just sometimes, like we had a death this weekend, just the family has to come and pick the grave. So just that whole dealing with that process.
Meaning they didn't have a grave, they're picking,
Correct.
buying a grave.
Yes, sir.
Did you say ledge?
Yeah, we hit ledge and boulders every once in a while out there.
I find that strange, because I thought there was this whole prep process where all the land was essentially,
We don't dig 6 feet deep
Prepared.
in order before we.
Well, these are some of the Not the newer sections. The newer sections are all pre-dug. It's
Mhm.
been the front, you dig down and remove all that. But some of the other sections of town, sections of the cemetery, excuse me,
Okay.
sometimes there's a boulder there and you just didn't know about it.
Okay.
It happens.
All right, okay.
And sometimes you think it's a little boulder, it turns out it's a large boulder, and it takes a while to chip it out.
Mhm.
And just what about religious restrictions, 24 hours?
I haven't seen that.
Would this infringe upon that and impede the
timeframe?
ability to
Yeah, I don't,
comply? Or
I'm not positive per se. I'm thinking Muslims, I know that's relatively quick. We don't have a lot of those. I'm not positive in Jewish, but typically a Catholic, Protestant doesn't.
I know Catholic Protestants, but I know other religious
I-
beliefs require.
I've not heard that, and, survey from the communities, I haven't seen any language to that effect either.
I'm just wondering if whether or not,
Hasn't reduced the time, that was my concern. It's still
So-
24 hours.
so we could still accommodate.
If they have any, yes, we would.
Just noting that there may be some circumstances beyond our control that might require more time.
And I think the way you worded A gives you some of that discretion,
Are you looking at,
the new.
you reworded?
They are, yeah.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr.
Yeah,
Yule.
you talked about possibility not having the equipment to do the job because you are sharing it with other departments,
Yes, sir.
correct? From a priority standpoint of view, who would get the priority?
If there's a water main break and a funeral, we have a backhoe and an excavator, so we try to use one or the other. We try to. We prefer the excavator because it can get between graves. It's easier to get in without causing other damage. So we tend to use the excavator because it does a better job and less damage. But if need be, we'd call another community if we needed to. We'd ask to borrow some of their equipment. We share periodically in emergencies.
Mr. Prisco.
Just a stupid question. There's funeral directors, right? That's what they call funeral directors that you deal with?
I guess.
Because, I only asked because
Funeral homeowners.
when I read this initially, I saw the word director, I'm thinking, wait a minute, why are we giving the funeral hall,
Oh,
funeral?
no, yeah.
So I was just curious, the terminology, is that typically what you use the word
He's the
director?
chief funeral director.
I don't want any confusion, that's all.
You're the head funeral director.
Well, I have
Mr.
very
Rosler.
people, not here.
All right, I just want to make sure there's no
No, sir.
confusion can be on their part.
In the prior sections of the bylaw, it says Director of Public Works.
So again, I just get back to the, notice of 24 hours before the announced time of the funeral will be required.
Period.
But in those instances where, maybe,
Well, I think the next sentence fixes it.
In the event we can't accommodate that due to those three circumstances.
Causes
no,
beyond-
I'm worried about having to do something in less than 24
Right.
hours.
And I
So
think,
it just says, in cases of extreme weather, causes beyond human control, or because of any other extenuating circumstance, the director may schedule and determine as conditions permit. So this is just, it's conditions.
So if he knows a storm's coming quickly, he's gonna hurry up and get the
Right.
job done.
So are you concerned that somebody might need to be buried
Right.
12 hours?
Yeah, yeah.
and I think the way it's written, it gives them that flexibility.
Well, I think that the word conditions here are more directed towards weather conditions or something else that occurred, out of the human control or because of any other extenuating circumstance. I don't know if it covers it or not, that's all.
Yeah.
I just said,
The idea is more for a delay, not a acceleration.
right,
Right.
well, no, what it says is that you have to have 24 hours notice will be required. So there's your restriction, you can't get buried in less than that.
Mr. Gilberto?
I just was going to, I guess, ask, we have the term extenuating circumstances in there. I think the question would be, at least under the language as it's written right now, would a requirement for a funeral for a burial that would need to occur within 24 hours or with less than 24 hours notice be classified, if it were for a religious or other cultural purpose, would it be classified in an extenuating circumstance? I think that,
Yeah.
if that's not the case, then we may have some
So,
work to do.
and again, maybe if we're gonna, maybe offer a friendly amendment at town meeting and explain to the moderator that's within the four corners, that that's the intent. It's not to exclude, religious or cultural, other religious or cultural beliefs which may require something sooner.
Mr. Prisco.
Well, because the way when I read it, I thought about when you had a storm coming in. You may want to move the funeral up early because you've got this massive storm coming in, and you have all this family here, and you know it's going to be a big storm. The way I read it, actually gave you the opportunity to do it sooner, because you knew a storm was coming in.
It is
So I
hard
think
to-
the kind of the way it's worded, it gives them all that flexibility.
I guess I was thrown off by the fact that it says, announce time within just 24 hours.
Well,
Yeah, but then it says, in cases of extreme conditions,
And again, I took that just being weather conditions or something, the backhoe broke down or something like that. I didn't take it, I don't see it as inclusive in relation to religious or cultural beliefs, which may require something less than 24 hours.
okay, I got you.
That was the only,
I get you.
Yeah.
again, maybe
Mr.
read it
Yule.
differently.
Yeah, and it would have seemed to me that you can put wording in here, unless required
No, less than 24 hours.
by your
equal.
religion,
Yeah.
that you have to be buried within that time.
Yeah,
You can, I can't think of the
yeah,
right
it
words
may
right
be,
now.
less than 24 hours may be accommodated for religious,
accommodate for religious
or cultural
beliefs.
beliefs, yeah.
You know, and we'd have to,
When practical.
it would have to be truly, we have to know that that religion, whichever one it is, states that it have to be buried no later than 24 hours. It would have, and we can state that in there, unless religious requirements state must be buried.
Just
before
24-hour
that.
notification can be waived, for religious or cultural beliefs, if practicable by the director or something like that, but.
If the board so desired, we could look to, again, a language for an amendment that could be discussed on the 21st.
Yeah, I mean, I would just, if it can be accommodated, it can be accommodated.
Just
And I think it just has to be something that's within the four corners of the article that I think the moderator can hang his hat on, and that
Dick.
shouldn't be too difficult.
You wanted to say something?
Yes, sir. The three conditions there are from, I did a survey of like 10 communities, and that specific language is in Linfield, Topsfield, and Wakefield's bylaws, so I didn't invent that. And all the ones I looked at, I didn't see any kind of religious language.
That's
I
fine.
know, that's okay.
That's fine. You can be a leader.
Yeah, I don't mind blazing a new trail, Society's changing here.
All right, so what are the wishes of the board at this point?
I like it the way it is, but if the majority would like to add the language, then
Yeah.
so be
I
it. I'm
think,
not gonna be objective to it.
I think maybe recommend it, town meeting address see if it addresses the four corners.
I mean,
Is that what you're thinking?
I'm in favor conceptually, I'm all set. That's the only issue I had, that's all, other than that. So if we can come up with a friendly amendment, if that's the majority of the wishes of the board, if it isn't, it isn't, then we just move on.
So
Agree against it.
what you're talking about is either adding a sentence somewhere in there or
Right.
clarifying.
Which
an existing
allows the
sentence.
director to less than 24-hour notice for religious or
Right.
cultural beliefs, to accommodate religious or cultural beliefs,
Well, I
if
don't-
practicable. In other words, that not necessarily require them per se, because we might not be able to accommodate it.
I'm sorry, I wouldn't say, use the term beliefs, religious requirements.
All right, here's what I suggest is, I think Mr. Gilberto's got enough input to, at our next meeting, just
Yeah.
have a modification, and we can yay or nay it
All right,
and move on.
so, Mr. Chairman, I move to recommend a town meeting, Article 18, amend Code General Bylaws, Chapter 41-2, funerals and interment.
For a second,
Second,
second by Mr. Yule, further discussion, all in favor,
Aye.
opposed,
Thank you, Dick.
unanimous? Article 19,
Mhm.
snow removal on streets and sidewalks. Well, we have Dick here, maybe you'd like to come up and
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Uh,
So the article, the language here is largely legal in nature. It doesn't change the
The
operating
requirement, okay.
operating protocol of the Public Works Department. What it does is essentially give the town the ability to recover the costs associated with removing snow on private property on which snow has not been removed in compliance with the existing bylaw. I think the board may know, we put quite a bit of time and attention into this in the springtime, trying to look at solutions, and we went from everything from trying to redraw the entire map of enforcement, and ultimately came back to, we have a good bylaw. The challenge is the teeth behind the bylaw to enforce it. And that's what resulted in us going to town council and saying, this is where we want to see, where we'd like to go with regard to this particular issue. Take the existing bylaw, which requires snow to be removed in front of the non-residential property, and give the town the ability to not only remove the snow, but to remove the snow and recover the cost. Again, with the hope, I think primary, at least from my standpoint, the primary hope being that we'll be able to encourage compliance through continued public notification that this bylaw is on the books, that we'll see more compliance, that private property owners, commercial property owners will build into their snow and ice removal plan and cost projections the removal of snow on the sidewalk. I think the consensus was from the discussions that we had with the Public Works Director and the Chief over the course of the spring and early summer, that the challenging area in town is Main Street. I don't think that's any secret. The town does do some work on its own to remove snow within some major arteries outside of Main Street. This would not change that. We would continue to do so. Matter of fact, we have a new piece of equipment that we'll be acquiring that would, we think, allow us to more reliably do so. But it would provide teeth behind the bylaw to basically assess the cost of the snow, of the removal to the property owner on which the snow is located.
Mr. Prisco.
I have no issue with what's worded here. The only issue I've had with this bylaw has been forcing it upon everybody when in some cases it doesn't make sense. For example, out in front of the horseshoe where that sidewalk comes to an end, an abrupt end, to force that sidewalk to get cleaned where it doesn't go anywhere. But to ticket them if they don't do it, it just, the way it's enforced makes no sense to me. I don't know if there's a way to solve it, but how do we deal with those sidewalks to nowhere?
I think we haven't really bothered with them, or only the continuous sidewalks. So on the eastbound side,
Okay.
it starts at the Reading line and goes up close to North Street over here and then past. And on the other side, I think it starts near Park Street and heads north and it stops,
Right.
I think, right before
Walmart,
Joe's.
right after Walmart.
Walmart.
Between the post office and Walmart.
Right, and I don't think we spent a lot of time on any discontinuous piece, because like, as you said, it's a sidewalk to nowhere.
But I think he actually got some notices last year from the police.
He did.
He did.
He did, that's correct.
So, because the police had to do it per the bylaw.
Right.
If there's a way, since we're making this change, can we make a logical change so those businesses aren't impacted again? It makes no sense to force them to do something that.
Mr. Gilberto.
I didn't mean to interrupt, Selectman, I'm sorry.
I'm good.
I would add that what we could look at doing is language that gives a discretion to the police department in enforcing it with regard to sidewalks that connect to the network of sidewalks
Fine,
in place.
great.
Maybe that would address it. That's a minor change that we could do.
That's easy, great. If we could do that, and I think it's very enforceable that way.
If, there's not a lot of crosswalks on Main Street,
No.
and a piece of sidewalk's not where a crosswalk is really not gonna be used. I mean, as you're probably aware, most people walk on
Right.
the eastbound side if they're gonna go north or south.
So to threaten that business with a ticket, it doesn't make any sense. That's all I'm trying to eliminate.
Mr. Yule.
Yes, in today's discussion, I'm gonna abstain on this article at this time until I'm confident that it'll be as I feel it should be. A little bit of history. When we first finally started to enforce the snow removal of sidewalks, the policy was they get a warning, then they get a fine, and the dollar amount increases. And when we started doing that, they started clearing the sidewalk. And we had collected certain dollar amount in fines, a fairly good number. And you call it the Association for the Businesses, Chamber of Commerce, came out really hard and pushed us to give it a year, relieve them of their fines, and they more or less said, you know, we guarantee we'll take care of it. And hence, the fines were rescinded, everybody got their money back, and sidewalks were not being cleared. Some still did, but for the most part, they weren't being cleared. We had a system that worked. It was just a matter of enforcement. That's all it really was. So my concern, coming in with a new system and a new approach, I'm not sure, I'm not confident right now whether that's really gonna do the job.
This
I hope it is,
This is
but
not a change to the bylaw with respect to the requirement to shovel
Right.
the sidewalks. It's related to our approach to deal with
Mhm,
the fines, et cetera.
So those
To
businesses.
clarify.
right.
So the one discussion that Michael brought up was one of, we're finding some people of sidewalks that go nowhere, and should we or shouldn't we be doing that?
Yeah, but all sidewalks end, whether they end in a short fashion or they end somewhere. The sidewalk that ends at Walmart, it ends. Okay, so all of our sidewalks end, even on the east side, that ends.
Yeah, I understand.
So,
What he's talking about is there happens to be a sidewalk in front of a business, and there's no sidewalk on either side.
mhm.
Is there a reason to shovel the sidewalk? No one's gonna walk on it.
But whether he wants to shovel it or not, that's one thing, the business, but to ticket them for not doing it doesn't make any sense, because it doesn't, actually, it's probably more of a, like Dick just mentioned, there's no crosswalk there, so it becomes more of an unsafe issue than anything. So I think the way the bylaw is written now, Jeff, gives you what you were looking for, and now we can actually enforce it. Where before, you were trying to put everybody, you were trying to treat everybody equally, and I think what I brought up was, not everybody is equal. You know, you want to make sure that we have the sidewalks that all connect, that keeps our residents and our people visiting our town, walking up and down Route 28, they're safe now. And if they don't do it themselves, now this gives us the power to have Mr. Cannavale's guys go up and do it, and we get reimbursed for it. And you don't have to work, you don't have to go by anymore and check and say, hey, they're not shoveling it anymore. We get the warning, they don't do it, then we're gonna do it, and they're gonna pay for it. And we can now recoup the cost. So, I mean, you can still abstain if you want, but I think you get what you asked for. This is your article, you asked for it to be here.
No, I didn't ask for this to be here. I had absolutely nothing to do with this. The original article I did. Okay. But not this one,
Well, okay.
I didn't bring this up. It's,
Yeah, I beg to differ. I think the original article for snow removal was a bylaw that was passed a long time ago.
It's passed at town meeting, I want to say 90.
Yeah.
It just wasn't
Six.
enforced.
It was totally.
It just wasn't
ignored
enforced,
by
that's
the
all.
board
Mr.
back
Yule was an
then.
advocate for enforcing the bylaw
Right.
over the years and
Yeah.
has been. But, in relation to stub sidewalks, I mean, we have areas all over town, not just Route 28, where there are some sections of sidewalk and then it ends, and over time, we're trying to get them connected.
Connected,
But that
right.
doesn't mean that they're not utilized and
Right.
they're not walked on. So if there's a sidewalk in front of a non-residential property, it should probably be cleared, if not just for a sidewalk, but for visibility purposes. It's gonna be accumulating. And my guess is a sidewalk such as that one, they're gonna be plowing snow up onto it anyway there's gonna be a visibility issue. Again,
So-
if it's not a big deal, and it's not a big sidewalk, then it's not much more to comply with the bylaw either. And I don't know how many other instances there are on 28 like that, but.
4 of them.
Yeah, not a heck of a lot.
That's about it.
So I don't know that we need to tweak it. But I think it's a useful tool, that if the town is really gonna get serious about it, And rather than, chasing people down, have the police knock on the door and all the rest, so on and so forth, they've got 24 hours after the snow stops flying to do it. And if the town feels it's an unsafe situation, the town can go in and do it and then assess the property. My guess is it's put on like a tax bill as an assessment or a betterment or some
Correct.
sort.
That's correct, it'd be leaned.
So that way there, public safety is ensured and business, so the property owners have to decide whether the tenant or themselves are gonna absorb the cost of doing it, or do it themselves.
Mr.
So
Prisco.
we're gonna have a special rate then, right? You can't just be the actual cost of the labor, it's gotta be a cost associated with using our equipment, maintaining our equipment. I mean, it's gotta be a sort of a,
Most likely,
A
this is
composite
done-
rate.
This is probably done by contractors, most likely.
okay.
Given the timing, is we do all the other sidewalks, approach to the schools first, and typically by the time we get that done, the next storm starts and we're doing the same route, so Main Street tends to be our last priority. So to get it done in the appropriate time frame, most likely would be contractors, but we, as the TA mentioned, we are getting a second piece of equipment for sidewalks, and perhaps that could be used.
Well, I think you have to have a rate. I don't think you could just do a labor rate, because you gotta recoup the wear and tear of using our equipment. It's gotta be a composite rate.
I anticipate coming up with a cost divided by per foot, and they'd get assessed based on the footage, or the, what do you call it, the frontage, something like that.
Okay, thank you.
But each storm's a little different, the amount of time, sometimes unfortunately it's a time thing, so I don't think we set one rate, it could be it's take longer one storm than another storm, so it's, we could come up with one rate, but
Right.
again, we'd be overcharging one storm and undercharging another storm. So it's,
But
there's
that
many
doesn't-
ways to do it, I guess.
I don't understand that, because if we have a rate that captures some of the recoup cost to maintain the equipment, it's buried into the rate.
No, but the point he's making is that there's this much snow, or there's this much
Right.
snow.
But it's a per hour, so if it takes them 1 hour, then it's 1 hour. If it's 4 hours, then it's 4 hours, based on, the taxpayers shouldn't be just getting reimbursed for the labor, because there's more cost to it than just
Oh,
labor.
yes, I'm sorry, I agree.
I'm saying, you gotta layer in, that
Right.
rate has to include the cost for wear and tear and the equipment itself, like they do in the commercial side.
We have, what we call equipment rental contracts, we put out equipment we seek to use, and they give us a unit price. That'd probably be the basis of the cost we use.
That's perfectly fine.
Well, I guess my concern is, could we be losing money on this proposition?
I think he has to come back with a proposal for a rate if town meeting's gonna approve this article.
It'd be a rate to cover the
The
cost.
board will set
and
the
maybe-
rates.
You certainly don't want to necessarily encourage private property owners of allowing the town to remove their snow, because it's a better deal than, hiring the guy,
Because that's what's gonna
$40 to
happen.
do your driveway, every time they come through,
Price of fuel and all that on that.
so.
All right, where are we on this?
So I move to recommend a town meeting. Mr. Chairman, I move to recommend a town meeting, Article 19, amend Code General Bylaws, Chapter 158-9, snow removal on streets and sidewalks.
I'll second that at town meeting.
Motion by Mr. O'Leary, second by Mr. Yule. I assume we've talked this thing to death.
Yep.
All in
We'll
favor?
have some more.
Aye,
Aye.
opposed, unanimous. Article 20. This is basically,
Can we get the 20? Because I can't get the 20.
modifying or removing the current code?
That's correct, Mr. Chairman. It would repeal Chapter 145 relative to sex offender residency here in North Reading. Would strike from the bylaws the bylaw approved at the October 2014 town meeting, which was approved by the Attorney General, I believe, in December of 2014. Would repeal it from the bylaws, consistent with the Supreme Judicial Court's opinion of 2 weeks ago regarding an ordinance, a similar ordinance in the city of Lynn. And this is being proposed based on the recommendation of town council.
Are we proposing a new bylaw?
Not at this time.
Not at this time, okay.
Okay.
I'll entertain a motion. Mr. Prisco.
We'll do the motion for the sake of discussion, and I'd like to have a quick discussion.
Do you hear a motion on Article 20?
Well, Mr. Chairman, I move to recommend Article 20, amend Code Zoning Bylaws, Section 200-30 zoning map.
Second.
Second by Mr. Yule. Mr. Prisco.
So we put this in place to protect the community. And now we're recommended by our own council to remove it because of something that,
The Supreme
Based on-
Judicial Court ruled. What, 2 weeks ago?
That's correct,
3 weeks
yes.
ago.
2 weeks ago, the Supreme Judicial Court nullified a very similar, it was an ordinance in the city of Lynn, very similar to ours and I think some 40 or so other communities' sex offender residency bylaws, determined them to not be legal. And based on that recommendation, based on that decision and the fact that it's not, it was from the Supreme Judicial Court, unlikely to be appealed anywhere, the recommendation is first not to enforce effective immediately, and that came out a couple of days after the decision came down, but second, to repeal. I had a conversation over the weekend by email with town council relative to whether that ought occur now or could be deferred to June, and they suggested at this point, based on the decision coming from the Supreme Judicial Court, that the action be taken now rather than later.
and this is the one where they can't live by a bus stop or a school.
That's correct.
Now they're gonna be able to do that.
That's correct.
But they still have to notify the local police department where they are, where they live.
Does not make any change to the registry itself,
I get
just to the residency.
This is one of those you reluctantly have to recommend, because even if you have it on the books, you can't enforce it, and if you do enforce it, you're gonna lose. So,
So can you put the wording reluctantly
yeah,
recommend?
reluctantly recommend.
It's gonna get appealed, though.
No, my understanding is that it, again, I could confirm, but I don't believe it can be appealed, because it was from the Supreme Judicial Court.
Oh, my goodness. This is crazy, the world we live in. Okay.
I'm with you.
Okay, on the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Me.
One opposed.
Someone's gotta send a small message.
Article 21, zoning bylaw.
Mr. Chairman, this article would amend the zoning bylaws to refer to the most current version of the zoning map as amended at the June 2015 town meeting.
Okay, I have a different Article 21 in the motion here, let's see. Does it? Do it or not? Do it, sorry. Okay, that's all right, so this should be 22, this should be 23.
Zoning map, so that, yeah, they're off. So
I don't have one for
Number
21.
20, your 20 is actually 21.
Right.
And that's the renumbering due to the fact that the sex offender residency bylaw was added after the motions were prepared for the package. That's why it changed.
This does represent what we signed off tonight, right?
This does, yes. The version that we're going
Yeah.
through here, the motions, which were done on Friday prior to the decision being
Okay,
made,
got it.
the motions in the packet are
Yeah,
different.
okay.
So this article's associated with Article 20, because we're making that,
No, the Article 21 is
Is-
zoning map that now includes the rezoning of parcels on Bluff Avenue.
okay, thank you. I misunderstood you.
Mr. O'Leary.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I move to recommend Article 21, amend code zoning bylaws, section 200-30 zoning map.
Second.
Second by Mr. Yule. Do we have any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Article 22 is street acceptance of Swan Pond Road. We should have some maps to sign at our next meeting, I take it?
That's correct, yes. You'll be asked to lay out to vote the intention
Right.
and then lay out later this evening.
Mr. Chairman, I move to recommend Article 22, street acceptance, Swan Pond Road.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Yule. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Article 23, street acceptance,
Mr. Chairman, I move to...
Rondon Terrace.
Mr. Chairman, I move to recommend Article 23, street acceptance, Rondon Terrace.
Second.
Motion by Mr. O'Leary, second by Mr. Yule. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous.
I like the low
And
number
that
of
concludes first review of town meeting warrant. I suspect that maybe at our next meeting, some of the recommended town meeting might be modified.
We will
Well,
put,
no, it won't be because it's going in the warrant.
we
Once the
certainly
warrant-
can make adjustments for the PowerPoint presentation at the town meeting, but we'll be mailing on Friday.
No, man, on
the
Friday.
recommendations
Okay,
from
right,
tonight.
That's why we're doing it tonight, sorry.
And the Finance Committee met
Yeah.
last Wednesday evening to
Mhm.
make their recommendations as well.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Ms. Steele,
the gentleman sitting over here, I don't know why he's here, but,
we gotta ask him.
yep.
Sir, why are you here?
I wasn't sure, I had a notice about a Maple Road house.
If you come up to the,
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Conservation.
Oh, conservation.
Name and
I don't know.
address.
I'm Dan Colvin, I live on Winterberry Lane.
conservation.
I believe you're looking for the Conservation Commission meeting this evening,
Oh,
sir.
where was that?
Yes, which is in room 10.
It's probably over now.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
I didn't have my notice, my wife had it, so I just came down
Yeah.
there. Okay, all right, thank you.
It might still be going on.
Oh, okay.
Down this hall.
I didn't even see him come in.
I was gonna say something, but then he got up and talked to Jane, so I figured, he got up and talked to Jane, so I
Did he?
figured he was
I
all
didn't
set.
see that.
That's,
Okay, next item is legal bills for July. Mr. O'Leary.
1 second, please.
Okay,
Thank you, Dick.
Putting one in here that we didn't have. So. Okay.
thank you, Dick.
Thank you, Dick.
Good night.
I'll second it.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I move to approve legal bills for July 2015 in the amount of $5,647.84 as follows. Copeland and Page PC General, $4,579.84. Copeland and Page PC Labor, $486. West Publishing, $582. Total $5,647.84.
Do we hear a second?
Mr.
Second
Yule
by
said, yeah,
Mr.
there's a rubber
Prisco.
dog, but Mr. Prisco, okay.
Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Doesn't look like we have anyone here for public comment. Street acceptances, vote of intention and order of notice, Swan Pond Road. Mr. Gilberto.
This is the first in the two procedural steps
Yeah.
that the board needs to take with regard to street acceptance. Again, as the board knows, Swan Pond Road was previously protected as conservation land through an act of the legislature approved in August, signed by the governor in August. We now have the ability to go to town meeting, accept it as a public way, which would, A, put it on the books as a public way, and B, make it eligible for Chapter 90 funding reimbursement from the state, as well as the expenditure of Chapter 90 funding for repair to the road. Again, this would be a portion of the road because there are portions as you get closer to the pond that traverse through privately owned parcels for which we're not in a position to be able to accept as a
Right.
public way at this point in time.
Mr. Chairman, I move to sign the vote of intention to lay out Swan Pond Road in order of notice to abutters.
Do hear a second.
Second?
Second by Mr. Prisco. Any discussion? I think Mr. Gilberto clarified the piece that we're doing. It's, station numbers are there. The maps we don't have tonight. We'll be doing that at our next meeting.
That's correct, and there will be maps mailed in the warrant when it's mailed as well.
Okay. On the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. And we have street acceptance for Rondon Terrace.
We need to sign this too.
What?
We need to sign these.
Yes.
Yo, Michael. Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I move to sign the vote of intention to lay out Rondon Terrace in the order of notice to abutters.
Motion by Mr. O'Leary. Do we hear a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Prisco. leave it for Jeff.
I don't think he can sign, he didn't vote.
Okay. I made a motion, Mr. Prisco, seconded it, this is on Ryder
Any
Terrace.
discussion? This is to vote of intention in order of notice for Rondon Terrace. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous?
Jeff didn't vote on that one. Is it okay for him to sign it?
Oh, that's right. Cross me out. Thanks for catching.
What, the 2 pages on the other one?
Yeah.
One's
Yes,
for,
but the one's
the
just for the
clerk.
clerk.
One's just for the clerk.
Oh, okay.
Thanks, Mike.
Next item on our agenda is cell phone policy, second reading. Mr. Gilberto, there's a copy in the warrant.
That's correct, Mr. Chairman. This is, would be for the approval of the cell phone policy that was, that had a first reading, I believe, in May, had preliminary review, which occurred in February or March. The point of impact is largely the non-union employees, and I have had conversation with the building inspector, and at this point in time, I believe that we've been implementing it across the board since July 1st, the beginning of this fiscal year. This would codify that.
Mr. Chairman, I move to adopt the second reading of the cell phone policy.
Do I hear a
Second.
second? Second by Mr. Yule. Discussion, Mr. Prisco.
Data. How is data controlled? Because I read through it again, and I know I didn't catch it the first time, but I've just learned about the expense of data because of my own family. How is it being controlled here? Because obviously you've got smartphones, they're gonna have data plans.
That's correct.
And that's where really all the expense is now.
So I'm not aware of, A, whether there is a restriction on data through the state contract that we have cell phones provided, through which we procure cell phones from Verizon. I could check with the finance director, see if there is a limitation. I can tell you in my experience over the past 13 months, I have not seen that it's become an issue that I can recall where someone's data usage has created an additional expense. We have had instances where a phone, again, not necessarily in my tenure, but where a phone has been used out of range, so to speak, and there's been roaming or other charges that have been incurred on it. But there's no immediate instance that comes to mind where that's
Okay.
been an issue, which leads me to believe that it's probably unlimited data in the state plan.
Great.
But I can confirm that with the finance
Because
director.
it was silent on it.
Yeah.
If you go through the document, it really is silent on controlling of data, but that's fine.
Yeah, I'll confirm
It's
that
not
with the finance
necessary.
director, and if it requires further change, then we'll make change, we'll
In
come
the
back.
future, it's just something I wanted to ask.
Further discussion.
Also, very good, thank you.
All in favor? Opposed? Unanimous? Town Administrator's report.
No public
Gilberto?
comment,
No, other than you're supposed to be a conservation.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Just going from my written report to the board. First, we're informed by the State Division of Capital Asset Management and Maintenance that the state is issuing an RFP for the location of a cell tower on the Camp Curtis Guild property. While it remains to be seen where on the property the tower might be located, the town engineer did attend and provided a copy of the request for proposals package, which was in my town administrator's report. What I gather is going to happen is there's going to be a review done by DCAM of the proposals, and they'll find a suitable location. And I presume that the dialogue with whatever community that location is in, that dialogue will begin in earnest, and any permitting requirements would take place at that point in time. As a follow-up to my fiscal year 2016 budget presentation, I've asked the police chief to lead discussion regarding regional animal control with interested communities. Fortunately, I think as the board knows, for North Reading, the interested communities would all be looking to North Reading to host the program, which will give us direct control over the program while potentially reducing our operating costs. We do have a facility located at the Public Works yard that does need some improvements, but is functional as a pound. We would recover the costs of serving the other communities through an intermunicipal agreement to assess the charges to those participating communities. We don't have a structure in place at this point in time, but I anticipate requesting this to be an agenda item at a meeting either in September or October to receive feedback from the board. And as the board is aware, an IMA would need to be approved by the board before it could go into effect to achieve this. So I offer this as an update that the conversation has continued since we've transferred animal control functions from the Board of Health to the Police Department. The chief has taken on the leadership in that discussion. I think that this is a unique opportunity where we're asking other communities to look to us as the hub, which gives us control and allows us to be able to recover costs for an existing program. I expect it will be a standalone agenda item at a future meeting, again, potentially in September, maybe in October, for an implementation, potentially January 1st. But I write to advise the board that the conversation is continuing as I had proposed in, excuse me, in the budget discussion. Selectman Masseri and Yule and I met with Kinder Morgan on September 1st and with Congressman Moulton on September 2nd. Both meetings were informative. I think in the case of Kinder Morgan, more informative than our previous conversations with Kinder Morgan. I am expecting a full update from Selectman Yule, and I'll certainly fill in where needed at that point in the meeting. I just note for the board and for the community that a new administrative assistant for the Conservation Commission has been appointed. Christine Doolin, who's a North Reading resident, begins work tomorrow, and she was at the Conservation Commission this evening for introductory purposes. Excuse me. RMLD is gearing up for their transition to LED streetlights, as we discussed with them in the late winter and early spring. Based on the previous discussion the board had, we'll be evaluating the lights that are off for any that should be turned on for public safety or other purposes. We'd also intend to advise the public to notify DPW if they have a streetlight that is off and that they may wish to see turned back on so that it can be more closely evaluated pursuant to the current protocol that we use. Right now, the way it works, if a resident has a streetlight that's off, what often happens is they contact us and they say, the streetlight's not working. We go, and of course, it's not working because it's been turned off. And what happens is they then ask if it can be turned back on. There's a public safety review that occurs, and if there's a determination of need, it's forwarded to RMLD and the light is turned back on. So what we would do is make that review on our own, but then also provide the public the opportunity to provide us feedback if there's a list they'd like us to look closer at. I was initially proposing September 30th as a deadline by which we would submit a list to RMLD, but that can be fluid depending upon our progress to look at different lights. Most importantly, the lights that were not flagged to be turned back on would be removed and not replaced with an LED by excuse me, RMLD. So that's why handling this, I think, appropriately on the front end is important, because there'll be additional costs associated with any new LED installations. And that concludes my comments for this evening.
And I can work off of what Mr. Giliberto mentioned regarding the pipeline. Since our last meeting here, there have been 3 meetings that we've had. One with Kinder Morgan, one with Seth Moulton, and the Northeast Municipal Gas Pipeline Coalition. In the meeting with Kinder Morgan, they brought up a number of things, which was they said they had a route change, but in reality they didn't have a route change. Not from what we have. It was the same map. Also, they indicated that they're going to file in October with FERG, and that also that the size of the pipe has changed from 20 inches to 24 inches. Also, they indicated that they had not at that meeting, not had an agreement with National Grid to use their right-of-way. And so at this point, I don't know if you...
Sounded to me, Jeff, that those agreements are in place now.
I haven't heard.
No, I did not hear that that was confirmed. Only that they were close.
Yeah. Are you
I'm
referring to-
interpreting that from the fact that, I don't know where I heard it now, come to think of it, that they've got an agreement with National Grid as a supplier.
They probably will, but I haven't heard anything.
National Grid, the gas.
Right. Right. So, and also, one of the things I brought up was safety and regarding first responders. The meeting was attended by DBW Director, CPC Danielle, Board of Health was there, obviously Chief from the North Reading Fire Department, and Leah, I believe, from Conservation. They all attended. So I expressed concern, and Chief Warnock asked quite a few questions inquiring about what type of training Kinder Morgan will provide for them. And they said they do have mock emergency training programs that they do with all communities that are involved. With regard to eminent domain, they say they try to avoid eminent domain, and they try to come to an agreement with some type of severance package, of which, you know, if there's an issue, if there's with someone's property, they don't do the work. What they do is they come to an agreement, a financial agreement with the property owner, so that they can decide to do with their property what they want. But the property owner has to sign off on that. After the FERC process, the MEPA process begins to kick in. And so that was pretty much the gist of that meeting. I don't know if you want to add anything on that?
Just a comment, in my notes, and I may
Yeah.
have it backwards, because I was
I have it
typing
down.
and I sent you a copy.
Right,
I had noted that the pipe size increased from 20 inches to 24.
right. I mentioned that.
I thought you
You said
said
the
24 to
other way.
20.
You
Oh,
said
did
from
I?
24 to 20.
Yeah, so I'm just trying to get that
I thought I
clarified.
heard 20 to 24, but,
Right, okay.
but
No,
no,
I
it did
heard
increase.
24 to 20. I was.
Well, I said-
No, that's what he said, yeah, I know, that's why I raised the issue.
Okay, no, they went from 20 to 24.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
I apologize for
Yeah,
that.
they didn't shrink it.
No, no.
I was shocked. I'm glad you said that.
Well, I think in some areas of the state, they have.
They have,
To it.
the major line they have.
Yeah, they've gone down, okay. With the meeting with Seth Moulton, which Bob attended, the town administrator, myself, also in attendance was Brad Jones, Bruce Tarr, some others, the chairman for the Wilmington Selectmen, which I do need to get in, talk with one of the members who would like for me to get in contact with him. Putting my daughter into college took a lot of time. But that aside, the meeting that Seth held was more of a fact-finding meeting for him. It seems to me that whether you're an elected official or just somebody that might be impacted, everybody seems to be, to me, somewhat in the dark of what is really happening. I get that feeling, and Seth is Congressman Moulton is in D.C., and hopefully he'll be a little bit more closer. He did indicate that he wanted to bring our message more specifically to FERC regarding our lack of interaction when we went to the meeting that they were caught in bad weather and they couldn't come to the meeting in Andover. So we never had the opportunity to talk to FERC on a one-on-one basis regarding the Linfield lateral. So his intent is to put in a special request to FERC that they would come and talk to the communities affected by the Linfield lateral. Okay. But in this meeting, there were a number of things, and, some of it's repetitive. The question was Article 97 of the Massachusetts Constitution. There was he wasn't aware of that approach by Kinder Morgan. We also, the meeting that I had gone to regarding the FERC hearings, the scoping sessions, there was a theme in the sessions that was presented by everybody, including myself, that we felt that the scoping sessions should be expanded for more opportunity to find out more. And the reason for that was there's about 10,000 TBDs, to be determined dates, on their by Kinder Morgan on some of the on their reports. Senator Tarr did indicate that one of his biggest concerns is that the alternative energy options that are out there are just not enough to satisfy the needs that we have here in New England. And by the way, going back to the meeting with Kinder Morgan, they did show us where this gas coming through the Linfield lateral is going to go locally. Okay, they have contracts with regional providers for local use within our district or within eastern Massachusetts. So they did show that to us.
Well, I think the key points that we got out was they're gonna file in October. It seems like they got their ducks in order. They're waiting to sign an agreement, and they may have already done that with National Grid, which allows them through the pipeline. And I think there was one interesting point that was made, is that there's a 50-foot right-of-way required for the gas.
Right.
Okay? And they are gonna put it on the edge of a 50-foot right-of-way, I believe, that the power company has. So one of the impacts is that there's gonna be an additional 25-foot intrusion into properties where the electric company currently has right-of-ways. Is that your understanding?
Yeah.
So the conversation got into, the impact, compensation for, and so on and so forth. It's clear that they understand that those things are gonna occur, yet they're as sneaky as can be, because remember, we signed the letter, not, letting them on our property, and they've sent back, I don't know if you've seen this yet, Jeff.
It was brought to my attention. I haven't quite read it just
So
yet.
I haven't read it either, because I just got it tonight.
Oh, I read it.
I scanned it, right? So they're saying that, they already have a right to enter public property to do what they want to do. I've asked Michael to get a copy to town council and get some kind of an opinion of what's what here.
Yeah.
I take it a little different. They have now obtained legal counsel, and legal counsel is telling us where legally they have their rights and that where we're violating it. I think now that we receive this, we should cease and desist any discussions with Kinder Morgan and just force legal counsel to talk to our legal counsel, because this is the road they're going down. And I think it's absolutely ridiculous when they haven't even filed with the FERC yet, and now they hire legal counsel to come after the town.
So I've asked Michael to make sure there's a copy in Dropbox if there isn't already. And so everyone will get a copy of it and have a chance to read through it. and to get an opinion from town council on some of the claims that are made in there.
And how we should deal with them going forward.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point.
I mean, if that's gonna be their method of
So they came
operation.
here nicey
Yeah.
and they stick their
Now they've
attorney.
obtained
out.
legal counsel.
Right. I wonder if they've done this with other towns as well. I'm sure they have.
Well, you can find that out, can't you? You've got a bunch of contacts.
Yes.
You see that?
Also, at our Northeast Municipal Gas Pipeline Coalition, by the way, the next meeting will be held here on the, what day is that?
September 21st.
September 21st, 10 a.m. And I assume you have this room reserved?
We will have it reserved. I don't believe I've reserved it yet.
Okay. All right. If 3 or more of us are going to attend, then we're going to have a notice that we're having a meeting.
Well,
I won't be.
So, but
I may not be, I have to go look at my calendar,
Okay.
so.
Okay.
But if someone else wanted to go, I wouldn't bother going.
There's a proposed letter to FERC that Sheila Harrington, State Representative Sheila Harrington, presented to us at the meeting. And it's also signed, will be signed by Brad Jones and James Lyons. It's a letter to FERC. Did you get that? It was part of the handout.
I'm sure I
I
never did
shouldn't
the
say,
packet.
I shouldn't say it's part of the handout. She handed it
She
out
did, I
at the
remember that.
meeting. Okay, and I have it here, so if for some reason you didn't get it in, you know, you can, I'll give you this.
Is there action we have to take?
No, we don't have to do anything.
Okay.
It's their letter. If you'd like, I can read it quickly to you. No, okay. All right, but it's a letter to FERC, and they were agreeing with Governor Charlie Baker has issued the following general statement. And it's a statement by Charlie Baker, and they are in agreement with that. So those are the three signatures that are on there at this time. So, and let me read his statement. That's it. It's only a few words. Governor Baker is committed to diversifying the Commonwealth's energy portfolio to reduce costs and ensure reliability for Massachusetts ratepayers through a balanced approach of renewable energy investments, increasing energy efficiency, and expanding natural gas capacity along existing routes, emphasis added. And that was, okay, so that was a statement by Billy Pittman, Deputy Communications Director. He's the one who put it out. So that's what they're doing.
Okay, since we're in old and new business, do you have any other old and new business?
No.
Okay. Mr. O'Leary?
Just that school's opening
Yes.
tomorrow, and new and improved middle school, what shall we say, renovated middle school, a few walls that were left, is open and shining brightly, I tell you, it looks beautiful. And it's all ready to go, so I just first of all want to congratulate the secondary school building committee for their persistence, and again, we're not done yet, still a little ways to go, but it's on time, the school's open, the project manager and assistants of PMA got the thing going, and it's gonna be operating fine, and everybody's very excited. I know the teachers went in last week and set up, and they were all amazed, for those that were previously at the school, as to what's there now, so it's quite an achievement, it's quite an asset to the community, and the kids are gonna be pleasantly surprised. Well, they did have their tours, but pleasantly surprised with the facility. So school's open, so make sure people are careful when you're driving. You know, the school buses will slow you down, but the kids will scare you sometimes, jump out in front of you, so be careful. Again, just I'd like to mention the passing of Mr. Ed Broughton, local resident who
I didn't hear that, Steve.
Ed Broughton passed away.
Oh,
And Ed was, a longtime member of the community, but also a significant help down at the senior center,
Right.
particularly around tax time, doing people's taxes and giving them advice and lending his expertise to the community. And His passing is unfortunate, but again, untimely. Just like to acknowledge that, his service to the community, and to his wife Louisa, our condolences. From that, also, Mr. Chairman.
Michael?
Yeah, just a couple things. Double telephone poles continue to keep growing here in North Reading. Not sure how we get the message over to RMLD, but if you go onto Park Street across from Nan's Cafe, they added 2 about 3 or 4 months ago, and it doesn't look like they have any intention of taking the old one down.
Well, there's some a lot older.
Yeah, I understand, but
There's some of them older than you.
Maybe it's time soon to get on have the director come in again, or whoever the liaison is, to get this discussion back on their agenda, because it looks awful. It just looks completely awful.
So one of the issues, obviously, we have a double pole because power company has taken and they moved their wires. It's on the new pole. They cut off the section down where Comcast, Verizon, and God knows who else are connected to it. So I think we have to light a fire under the other vendors. Maybe
Well, in this
Reading-
case, the
may-
poles are
Maybe
free.
Reading Light can help us, but
The poles aren't connected, then it's just the old pole sitting there. There's nothing connected to it.
No wires or anything like that?
well, if
No.
there's nothing connected to
Nope.
it, then clearly Reading Light needs to fix it.
The Commissioner's Cup is October 4th. That's land utilization annual golf outing, October 4th. So if you can make it and the public can participate, it adds a lot of great value to our open space. The money is raised. The open for business event that DCAM invited us to participate in for September 24th has now been moved to October 19th.
October 9th,
19th.
October 19th.
And they changed the time from 8:30 start to a 7:30 start.
October
And I'll send out the
19th.
information again as we get closer.
7:30 in the morning
Yeah.
instead of.
They're gonna be sending me some additional information on that soon.
Okay.
And then just the last thing is, obviously this Friday is September 11th, 9/11, as we never want to forget that day. I know it certainly has made a major impact in my life, in my career. But I'm bringing up, Mike, because we haven't really followed up on the whole flagpole protocol, and I just want to make sure that, 9/11 is one of those days we don't have any confusion. Make sure that we have it down that, the flags will be at half-mast that day.
It was half-mast today, right?
It was, yes, Fred. I can't recall the reason why the Veterans Director did identify it. It is posted out there, but they already have staff.
Okay.
But I'll follow up with it to make sure that all of the flags are at their
For
appropriate.
that particular
display
day,
level.
I think it would be
Yeah.
appropriate to make sure that we have the message across the board. And that's all I have,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Well, we're talking about schedules. I just want to review the board schedule for the next few weeks. Currently, we're scheduled to have a board meeting on the 21st. We have an issue associated with trying to get a meeting together with Judge Deptula.
Correct.
Have we nailed?
He is available on Wednesday, September 16th. I know board members had a conflict on Monday and Tuesday, the 14th and 15th, so I asked him if he'd be available on the 16th.
So we don't have a meeting on the 14th. I had put a
Correct.
placeholder in there, right? We have issues with
Right.
that. So,
And I did learn that it is Parents Back to School evening, the night of September 21st. My wife has always done the heavy lifting when it comes to that stuff, so for me, it's not gonna be a problem. Not too sure. Okay.
well, I don't have any kids in school.
Actually, that's high school, so you know what? I don't believe she has any
No, I don't
in
think so.
high school. Okay, then it's not an issue.
So the 21st was our next
regular.
meeting leading into October
Yep.
town meeting, but we're trying to squeeze a meeting in. Maybe it would be just an executive session, a meeting with Judge Deptula regarding the,
On Monday, the 14th?
No, 16th.
Wednesday, the 16th. I
16th.
believe the 14th and 15th.
Yeah,
did
I
not
couldn't do
work.
the 14th, but on the 16th, if it's gonna be later in the day.
we would do it at 6 o'clock, right?
That's correct.
and-
With the pre-meeting beginning potentially at 4. So
Is everybody okay with that?
Well, let me see.
I'm sorry, you said pre-meeting, that's, you guys are gonna talk.
No, there'd be a pre-meeting, but the board would meet with
At
him at
6.
6.
Correct.
Just wanted to-
I think he was talking to Steve regarding that,
Well, if we're all gonna be together,
yeah.
why would we have a pre-meeting and then have another meeting? Why don't we just, I mean, we're only talking 3 people.
I think
Well,
that
this
No, we're
case-
not.
No, we have members of the Secretary
No,
of
no,
School Committee.
I understand. We're only talking 3 members of the board that don't get to participate in it. And so we have to rehash it all.
I think a little unique about this, the discussion that needs to occur is that there are some action items that I believe Attorney Deptula is awaiting information for us from that would need to come from members of the SSBC. I wouldn't want to subject the board members to have to
Okay,
go through that exercise.
that's fine. I didn't know. I just figured I'd ask. That's fine.
So we're okay for the 6 o'clock on the 16th?
And again, oops, we're,
Plan for an hour?
and then we're,
I would
Plan
think
for an
You're an
hour and a
optimist.
half at a
you're an
minimum.
optimist.
Comedian.
Okay.
I mean, we have a key decision to make here, okay?
Oh, I know what it is.
I mean, you know, we got October town meeting coming up. We need to make a decision on how much additional money we're gonna put in, if any, and how we're gonna operate this whole thing, so. We are scheduled to meet on the 21st. I hope we'll have a full board then.
We will have warrant article hearings that evening.
What?
Warrant article hearing will be that evening for a
Right.
town meeting.
Yeah, I'll be-
And then the 28th?
The 28th, we have again?
At the
We
moment,
have-
we do not have.
Our next meeting would be October town meeting,
Right.
unless, for some reason,
Right, we put a temporary in.
we needed a meeting on the 28th.
Right.
But right now, we don't have one scheduled. Okay, and then, just so we can go beyond that a little bit here, so we have meeting on the 5th, which is October town meeting, and we would meet on the 19th as our second meeting of the month. Mr. Prisco.
We need to also schedule in the strategic plan.
Right, I understand that, I'm gonna get to that.
Okay. I'd like to do it before the 19th meeting if we could.
Well, I personally don't have a problem with it. The issue is, we come out of October town meeting. The 12th is Columbus Day, so we won't be meeting. We've done this on a Thursday in the past.
Or we did a Wednesday last fall.
Or Wednesday, was it Wednesday? Well, Wednesday or Thursday. Do we want to schedule our strategic planning meeting for sometime the week of the 11th? Anyone have an issue with that?
What date was that again, the 11th?
So you
is that
were
what you said, the
proposing the
11th?
15th? And then
The
we meet.
14th or the 15th?
How does the 8th work for everybody? 'Cause it's the same week as the town meeting, but the only reason I mention is because we're gonna be coming fresh off a town meeting.
Yeah, and I think preparation-wise for the administration, I think we'll need a little more time. Nothing
Okay.
personal, but
The 15th, is that what you're proposing, or the 14th?
14th or the
lot.
15th?
Both of
Do we have
those are-
preferences here?
Either would work for me.
and why are we moving it up to October here?
What?
What's driving the timeline here?
Budgets. So no, when Michael builds his,
When he makes his charge to the department heads.
Yeah.
Right. Wants to tie it into our strategic plan or changes we made to the strategic plan.
I'm just trying to think, what in our strategic plan drives the budget? Thus
A
far.
lot of things.
I mean, other than, we have projects ongoing and things like that, but I mean, you know, whether it be the water or the, you know, the big projects. But from a,
I'm gonna let Michael speak to it.
Yeah.
I mean, from my perspective, I found it challenging last year in that I gave the department heads a request to provide their budgets and to have their budgets back by the end of November, if I recall. And about the same time the budgets were coming in, we finalized the strategic plan, and I believe a presentation was made at a department head meeting shortly thereafter. And from my perspective, there may not be a lot that can be achieved through the budget process, but there might be building block steps that can be taken in the budget process to ensure we're making progress towards those goals.
I think it's more if the department heads have a review of our latest strategic plan, while they're thinking about the budgets, right? They could be proactively making proposals that fall in line with it. as part of the
That's my
budget
hope,
process.
at least.
Right.
They'll
It's
make
not so
progress.
much that they're gonna put dollars in for a specific thing, but I think it's part of the overall, what is their overall associated plan that leads to budget requirements, so, I don't know.
And I think this particular year is really important to have it early because we've been talking about economic development and we're making a significant charge now to really stimulate some economic development activity. And I think this year in strategic planning, it needs to be discussed to sort of outline what's going to be addressed. Because one of the things that we actually informally had a discussion with MWRA about was you got Teradyne and you happen to have a waste pipe right there. What's the possibility of bringing that down to about the Bobcat of Boston area? And, you know, is that something that's a viable option? Well, you know, that's not something Bob and I,
It turns out, you know, their ears perked up a little bit, right?
they want to help us. And I think, but to have the strategic planning discussion, I think is really important from an economic development standpoint, because if those things going on the table and we're putting these positions, you know, where we're meeting with them informally, at least have an idea of the board, if they're really interested in us taking that level of interest in some of these options that they're running by us. They're very motivated to help us from an infrastructure standpoint that has a positive effect on economic development. We have Secretary Ashton feels the exact same way, which I was hoping the town administrator may mention that there's a potential that he become visiting the town soon. And I think it's great to have an updated strategic plan before he comes here. I think the timing is perfect if we could try to do it shortly after October town meeting. But whatever the majority of the board
Well,
desires.
I think just to give everybody a break and have a little preparation time, the 14th or 15th.
That's fine.
Let's do it on the 14th then.
And what time do you typically start that night?
6
Six?
o'clock.
Okay,
where?
I think that's far
Does it
enough.
matter?
We'll work on the location.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
What day is it?
just-
So that's a Wednesday, the 14th.
Yeah. So then, going into November, we'd meet on the 2nd and the 16th, the following week is Thanksgiving. Makes sense?
Makes sense.
All right. Last couple of things I had was, Steve's already brought up, first day of school. I think the message here is be on the lookout, drive safe, don't pass school buses, et cetera, et cetera. And my last message is something I brought up before, and it's the beginning of school. We have 2 brand-new schools, a brand-new middle school and a 1-year-old high school. And I was extremely disappointed when I was in the high school to see graffiti written on the walls in the men's room that I happened to walk into. And I would just encourage parents to have a little discussion with their students regarding the care for the new schools. The entire community got together and invested over $120 million to build these schools. And I think it's a shame for a few students that, whoever they are, gone and scribbled on the walls.
I think they
It's
added some
disrespect for,
anti-graffiti paint.
it's disrespect for what the community is bearing the cost of, so that our youth can have a better education, and they turn around and they mark up the walls and whatever else they've done. And
I think
I
the school
think the
committee
parents,
is taking some action on that.
the parents, need to know that they should talk to their students about the fact that we have new property and it's not to be abused. And with that, I will call for motion to adjourn our regular session and go into executive session to finish what we didn't finish earlier.
Mr. Chairman, I move to enter an executive session, re-enter into executive session for the purposes of litigation strategy, collective bargaining, and potential lease of real property?
Yes.
Potential lease of real property. Such discussions in open session will have a detrimental impact on the town, and to, further that the Board of Selectmen will return to open session for the sole purpose of adjournment.
Second.
Is there a second?
Yep.
I did.
Okay. Mr. O'Leary?
Aye.
Mr. Yu?
Aye.
Aye.
Mr. Prisco? Chair votes aye. We'll take a 5-minute break. Allow NORCAM to